I went to five-a-side football once, gay five-a-side football once, and because we didn't immediately go to the showers and kiss, I just was like, this isn't my vibe.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. This week we are visiting a small town gay bar, and that bar is Eclipse in the Cornish town of Truro. And our guide is Martin J. Dixon, a stand-up comedian who is really into softcore porn and hardcore hand-holding. He lived in Truro between the ages of 16 and 18, having moved there to live with his grandparents and finish high school. And it was here that he snuck in to Eclipse and had his first gay bar experience. During our conversation, we veer all over the shop, as is the typical way on this show, and discuss what we think is the appropriate Grindr etiquette, what we even mean when we talk about a queer community, and what kind of decisions an amorphous spiritual blob would make on our behalf. But before we get into that, we talk about Martin's very first night at the bar as an unsure 16-year-old. He has snuck in with some friends from college, The Lights Are Low, and Destination Calabria by Alex Gaudino and Crystal Waters is playing over the speakers. And it's at this moment that a stranger hops into Martin's lap unannounced. Let's find out what happened next.
I went in and, as I said, the music was much better. There was a couple of posters on the wall, but otherwise it just seemed like a normal kind of club. And I remember that song was playing and a guy sat on my lap. And
on your, just a random guy came up to you?
No, so he was sort of friends with the people that I knew.
Okay.
And he'd said hi to me already that night, probably as I was getting a drink. And then it did feel very early on in the night. Just that song was playing, sat on my lap. And it was weird because he was a bit older than me, because obviously everybody was, because I was 16. But I was, I used to say he was very thin, and I've always been someone who's not very thin. Although I was slimmer then, but I felt weird because I felt like a giant child and a very miniature man was sat on my lap. It was very weird. And he, when I wasn't attracted to him, and I don't think he was particularly attracted to me, but I think he was interested that I was a new face there. So,
but even with those types of things, even if you're not attracted to the person, if it's the first time that's ever happened, there's a thrill to it, right?
Yeah, sort of, definitely. I mean, I think I was probably deathly afraid and afraid of I might have to reject him, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be mean doing that, but I was also like, it did feel it felt like what the right thing to have been. I don't know. It's difficult. It probably was quite thrilling, but overall, it was, it just wasn't the right person to be doing.
And also totally inappropriate to just go up to someone and sit on their knee.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. But I suppose he sort of knew them, and it felt uninvited. I suppose it's one of those weird things I always say to my friend, like when you're kind of a teenager, there are these things that happen that feel very inescapable and very out of your control. But I mean, someone sitting on your lap isn't out of your control, and it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Obviously, and if I was like nowadays, I'd be like, oh, can you hop up? I'd even make up a lie, if you're hurting my knee or something. I'm not even saying that I'm massively braver now, but I wouldn't part with something I didn't actively want to happen. But when you're 16, you just these things just feel like they're happening to you, and you can't really. Yeah, so I suppose it's ultimately not great.
And it's those types of shitty situations where if you say, look, it's not appropriate for you to sit on my knee, can you get off? Suddenly you're the asshole. Yeah. So there's all this kind of weird politeness that you have to get into, like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Would you not violate my personal space?
I suppose also, definitely it would have been an aspect to it as well where I would have thought, if you're sat on my lap, someone's going to think that we're together and we're not.
And that's going to squander my chances of getting laid.
Yeah. I'd like to appear very open to everyone else who's here. It's weird because I think I've always been, well, I certainly remember being very insecure, and I don't think I'm that insecure now. But looking back, I mean, I was a hot piece, but I definitely didn't see any action at Eclipse. Yeah, I don't think I even kissed a man. Well, no, I know I didn't kiss a single man.
Interview's over. This is like, what a waste of time. Yeah. I'm not going to get any stories. What?
I mean, you'd have to cut forward about 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, huh? I think so. Well, I mean, stuff, but not, nothing until I was probably, certainly nothing in Cornwall ever happened.
And okay, so then let's dig into this and let's do the RuPaul kind of thing of like me making shit up about your psyche. So was it just a lack of confidence from you?
Definitely a lack of confidence. I just didn't see myself as a sex person. Does that make sense? Yeah.
No. Tell me more.
Well, I wouldn't say it was unsexual. Like, obviously, I had my desires, but I just didn't think anyone else would ever see me in that context. The whole thing just filled me with fear, and I suppose probably what I would have benefited from would have been like a more typical teenage romantic relationship that I feel like a lot of gay people don't really get. So, when you're that age and you're kind of discovering stuff and you don't know that many people are out and things like that, so you end up with really inappropriate partners or people that you feel a bit not embarrassed by, that sounds really mean, but I mean people that you wouldn't wave like out in the street, or someone you don't know very well and then it turns out they're married and you're like, well, that's really annoying.
Or I dodged a bullet, at least I don't have to dump them now.
That's true. I mean, yeah, it's not all so bad, but it's definitely not, it's not what I would have needed. Like, I think at that time, if I could go back, I mean, I remember there was a guy who I did fancy, and he was a more appropriate person, and but I still felt really like definitely really insecure. I remember saying to him like, "Oh, should we be friends with benefits?" Because I just didn't think that he'd want to be boyfriends. So that sounds a bit sad, but I mean, obviously, it's all worked out wonderfully, and I do have full belief in myself now. So that's it's all good. And it's such it's always that thing, isn't it? Where like I feel very confident now, especially like body wise. I am a person in a bigger body. I'm a fat person, and I've always felt fat. I would look back now, and there were times I wasn't fat, but I felt very fat, and I felt that made me really worthless. And that's not how I feel now. I think fat people are wonderful and sexy and desirable. But at the time, it just that I just didn't have any awareness of that. So I felt that all I could really offer someone in a partner is my willingness to do anything to please them. God, that sounds really bad. Because actually there's a lot of things I wasn't doing. So it was I had willingness, but also no follow through really. So it was a bit of a fun little puzzle to figure out. Fun, sad little puzzle.
So hang on. So you're saying that you felt all that you had to offer people was your willingness to do things, but then you didn't actually do things.
Yeah, like I had a really strong desire to do things, but then I'd set up all these sort of like, in my mind it was like I'll never. I'm trying to think back, put myself back in that spot. I think to myself, I want to do something. I don't want to do some sex with someone, but what will that be? And I used to be like, okay, well we'll kiss, that's fine, and then maybe I'll touch them genitally, but they won't touch me, and that was for a few times. That was the rule. And then one day that was no longer the rule. And then the next rule was, only hand jobs. And then the next rule was like only oral. And then the next thing was, only fingers in the bum. And years passed. And then it was, obviously the final barrier.
Oh, wait. What's the final barrier?
Well, I think in my mind, the final barrier was anal.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like leveling up.
Oh, no, because there were other things I did do that I would have been skipping.
Leveling all the way
I definitely
up.
feel like I skipped ahead a little bit, and there were things I did that, why would I have bothered? But so then after that, looking back really is there. I had this idea that I wanted to wait until I was in love and in a committed relationship, but I just don't think. Then that didn't happen until I was much older.
So let's talk about this a bit more. So you said that earlier that you feel that you would have benefited from having a more typical teenage romance, which I've taken to mean like an innocent in-school hand-holding, very slow type thing. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, well, I suppose just more similar to what my friends had, which is so you're going out with each other for 6 months. and you kiss and then you hold hands and then maybe you give each other a hand job at someone's party upstairs, and I don't know, just and then it's really kind of slow and gradual, and everything feels like a really big deal because it feels like a big deal, however you're doing it, but it feels like a big deal to both of you, and just someone you feel that you can trust and that your parents could meet and things like that. All of those things that I think a lot of heterosexual people
get to do
can have. Not always. I mean, but I just think generally speaking, lots of heterosexual people I know have had that, and lots of gay people haven't.
But really interesting that you talk about in your own experiences, you had this idea in your mind of like, oh, I'm going to meet someone and fall in love and I'm going to wait until it's the right time. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, well, fuck this for Game of Soldiers. I'm just going to go out there and slut it up. Because that's exactly what happened to me.
It's relatable. It's relatable content, definitely. Like you say, it's kind of almost like it's out of your hands. Something happens, and then it's happened, and then you can't put Pandora back in the box. I don't know if that's how you kind of felt about it.
So my experience as a teenager was seeing everyone around me getting to do things that I didn't get to do, and then over intellectualizing it, and then being like, well, it's okay because I'm going to wait. But then that wasn't actually my motivation. I just wanted to break the seal and get going. And then there's like this period of making up for lost time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard lots of other gay people talk about kind of how we're sort of almost 10 years behind some people. I got my first boyfriend when I was 26. A lot of my friends got their first boyfriend when they were 16. It's that exact 10 years. And then you say you're kind of making up for lost time. I mean, I made up for other stuff just before that anyway, starting up a little bit. But yeah, then it's like I was 26 and I was having like my first argument with my boyfriend and introducing my parents to my first boyfriend and things like that. And it was very like, and then it's weird because I mean, he was he's gay as well, and you're just two young adults who behave like teenagers. You don't really know because you just don't know what you're doing, do you? It's very weird. And you're kind of in those early years of my relationship, I just would say to people, I'd say to my friends, like, is that normal? I just don't know. And I just said, I don't know if this is something that people break up over or not, or if it's nothing, or is this, I just felt like I didn't know anything that everybody else had experience in.
Do you have any specific examples?
I mean, just stupid stuff like in the first sort of 6 months of being together, I felt that he would see me a lot in the week and then not at the weekend. And I remember thinking to myself, it just feels like I'm filling a gap rather than him waiting to want to spend time with me and do something. It was more that he had nothing going on, and then he's busy. I don't know, and I had a really uneasy sort of sense about it, and that feeling sort of never really went away. And so it was a thing, and it was worth breaking up over. But at the time, I just had no sense of like I was like, this doesn't feel right. But it's my first relationship. I don't know if it's normal. I don't know if it's going to change or if it's if I'm being dramatic or and then who do you kind of. Well, I mean, I had loads of people like that.
So gaslighting yourself.
I suppose so, yeah. And just kind of, I just felt like I just didn't trust myself at all because I just felt like there was the right answer, and then there was, it was just out of my mind. I had no idea, and I also didn't believe anyone I spoke to about it. So I'd tell my friends, and they'd say, "Well, yeah, that's not very good," and then I'd think to myself, but you're just saying...
What would you know?
Yeah, well, I just felt like, you're saying don't break up with him because you don't think I'll ever find another boyfriend. I was convinced that was kind of how people felt about it, even though I don't think that many of them did, or any of them. I think they're my friends. They obviously think I'm amazing, and I think I'm amazing now too, which is great. But a real lack of self-belief, and kind of lots of self-doubt and things like that. And I suppose that maybe lots of people feel like that in their first relationship, but it just ideally that wouldn't happen when you're 26, I think. Yeah.
Oh no, you're never too old to be filled with insecurities.
That's true. Very true. Maybe. And also it's not 26 isn't old, but I suppose it felt, I remember at the time just feeling like it was too old to be having your first boyfriend. I think it depends how you feel about yourself, and if you know yourself well enough, then that's fine. I think
and it's that thing that we're growing up in this particular culture that emphasizes the importance of these types of pairings and relationships. And so if you're told that your entire life, like this is the thing you need to aspire to, and you haven't gotten there at the same time as everyone else, of course you're going to be like, I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. And I think, like you say, it's, obviously that's people prioritizing heterosexual relationships, which, you know, being a heteronormative society takes a lot longer to realize you're gay and then what you're going to do with that. But then also, it's that weird thing where I think
Didn't take me long after realizing that I was gay about what I was going to do with it.
Fair. But I definitely think there's a thing of, I remember I was talking to someone recently about, I think there's a high instances of poly or open relationships or just different types of relationships within LGBT communities. And I think that it's that thing where, like, you know, there's such a big kind of breaking of the kind of heteronormative idea of your life just shatters so completely. I think it makes you a lot more open to, you know, that's not going to happen. So what? And then you're kind of like, well, this is, you know, what else am I going to have? You know, what else is going to be available to me? You find yourself asking, you know, what do I actually want rather than what do people expect of me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe you get that a bit quicker because because you've broken it so early, I suppose.
Yeah, because you've been through that experience and you realized that it wasn't the end of the world like you thought it was going to be. And so you kind of are like, oh, well, what can I do now to disappoint my parents?
Exactly.
We're just going off topic slightly here, but the thing that fascinates me when we're talking about relationships is people who marry their first ever boyfriend or girlfriend and then are together for the rest of their lives. And this could very easily veer into me sounding judgmental, and I'm trying not to be. I just find it fascinating that, like, that happens.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it myself. I agree with you. I don't want to be judgmental because I think I probably know a few people who've been in a similar situation, but I can't relate. You know, if I had got my wish at 16 and I had a boyfriend, you know, the person I was at 16 is an entirely different person.
Dreary, right? Dreary, boring.
Yeah, very good. I just think I think I've gotten so much better, and I suppose people do grow together. And I imagine probably when I look back and I'm 60, I won't feel that I'm the same person now. So it's probably not too dissimilar. And I'm sure, you know, people do meet when they're in their 30s and then marry, and then, you know, in their 60s they're still very happy together.
Yeah, but you've done lots of figuring out on the way. Like, you've kind of seen what different relationships are like, what fits, what doesn't fit. It's like going into a shop and being like, I'll have that dress, and then just wearing that dress for the rest of your life. Yes,
I suppose. And I suppose also because then you miss out on some of the, I mean, I do, obviously my stand-up is it's a lot of dating joke. I mean, obviously what stand-up isn't like that, especially when you're single. It's, you know, it's such a rich pool of stories, and some of them I wish hadn't happened, but ultimately you know, they do form who they form who you are, but also that you look back and they are fun to look back on and to, you know, to cringe about or to laugh about or whatever. And I think, you know, I'd hate to not have those. But I suppose, you know, I suppose you don't miss what you never had. So I'm sure there are people who met their first love and they're very happy with the stories that they have. But I also I feel like I wouldn't change it for the world. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of, I think we probably all do that a little bit, don't we? You kind of, you have the life that you have, and then you pretend that you picked it. Does that mean?
Or that, like, yeah, there was some big learning in it, and it's helped you become the person you are.
I mean, like, I quite often say to people, like, if I wasn't, you know, if I could have picked, I would have picked to be gay because I love the things in my life that has led to sex with men, majoritively. But if I was this kind of spiritual blob who was, I don't know, deciding what to be born into, would I have picked it? I don't know.
No, you wouldn't. Like, why? No, of course you wouldn't.
I don't know. Well, I didn't, because actually, looking at my life now, I feel one of the things other than, you know, that I think being gay has led me to is my relationship with the women, you know, with my friends who are women. And I don't think very many straight men would have so many relationships with friends that are women that are so wonderful. But I don't know if, you know, who knows, I could just be making that up. But I just feel like lots of straight men don't have that many female friends in quite the same way that I do. And I feel very grateful for them all. And, you know, so that and the sex with men. And the relationships I've had with men as well have also been, some of them good.
That's a ringing endorsement for men. Some of them have been good.
Some of them have been absolutely fine.
But if you were just like this blob and you were like, okay, so I've got a choice between having like additional privilege in my life or some oppression, like, I don't think that's a difficult decision.
Very true. But the blob might know something I don't know. So it could be
But
that
I thought you were the blob.
Well, yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is I don't know how the blob thinks. The blob might know things that I don't know. You know, the blob is, we're the same, but also we don't necessarily have the same memory and thought process. So when you're a blob,
okay,
let's say it's in a kind of a universe where people are born again after they die, then it could be that the less privilege you have, the better reward there is at the end. I don't know. So that's what I mean. Like, I don't, what's the blob's aim? Maybe it is to have a really cushy life. Maybe it's to have a really difficult life because the reward is better. I don't know. I think this is getting very existential. Or not,
Okay.
not, it's very. I'm not against it. I'm just not that clever.
So let's go back to Eclipse. Do you remember anything from the first night other than this strange man sitting on your knee? Like, what was the feeling?
I mean, just so much excitement, but then excitement, expectation. I did expect that I'd probably meet the love of my life because I wanted it so much. And so, yeah, just so excited. Then as the night wore on, I was like, this is looking
He's
a little doubtful.
I'm sure he's around here somewhere. But like, so because the people there were just like, meh, not, or just that.
I suppose a lot of them were old, probably too old for me. Being that I was 16. So probably actually quite a good thing. But I don't know. It's weird because like I said, looking back, I think I was a hot piece. Maybe I was just giving off this energy of like nervousness and standoffishness. And my mum used to say, not necessarily to that situation, but she'd say quite a lot, confidence will get you, get you everywhere. People who are attractive, it's more their confidence than anything. I used to think to myself, shut up, that's not true.
But how do you think they got the confidence, Mum? God.
Exactly. But I look back now and I just think, it was incredible looking, and I can't see how I did so badly. Not a single, I don't think even a man spoke to me. I just spoke to my friend who was a girl who was really funny. And then danced a bit. And I discovered a love of dance. In dark rooms with, top 40 hits playing.
And when you say dark room, you don't mean dark room. You just mean a room that is dark.
I know, I should specify. Yeah, I don't believe there was a dark room there. I'd be devastated to find out there was, and that's where everyone was hanging. And probably the love of my life.
He's still in there on his knees.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully not. It's been closed about 10 years, I think. Just a little skeleton somewhere in a sling.
Let's talk about that standoffishness. I know sorry, I'm just like, let's talk about all the bad bits of this.
There's a lot to get into, bad bits wise.
Okay. So then let's do a little bit of role play, right? So we're in the club and let's say you're standing by the bar and I come up to you. This is when you're 16. I'm also of an appropriate age, so this isn't skeezy. And I'm like, hey, how are you?
I don't think that ever happened. I genuinely don't think I was approached by a single guy, and I don't think I would have ever approached anyone either. So I guess it's a kind of two. I think there would be times where I'd maybe smile at someone and I'd think that was something was happening, and then I wouldn't catch their eye again for the rest of the night. Despite I'd like lunge forward to try and look at them, and they'd be like, "Oh."
But what about on the dance floor? Like when you pulled shapes, were you just like, "Hey, grind up against me, Mister You"?
So I've always felt the dance was not sexy. I remember going to a work party, and me and my friend, I think it was my flatmate at the time, we really fancied this one guy at work. We both of us burning loins for this one guy, and I remember having quite a nice time, and then Drunken Love came on or something like that. I think it was Drunken Love. And I remember leaning towards my friend and saying, you can have him. And then just having the best 3 minutes of my life. Just really just loose and wild and free. And just, but it's not attractive, I'll be honest with you.
So do you mean like the dancing is more important to you than pulling? Or when you dance, you're just so repellent?
I mean, a real combination of the pair, I would say. I don't think anybody looks at me dance and thinks he's the one, which I do find bizarre, I'll be honest with you. Because I think, if nothing else, I just look like I'm having a really good time. And I just think, wouldn't you want to be with someone who was having a good time? I find a lot of gay men just don't feel the same way about me that I feel about myself.
Well, no, but it's so weird, right? Because I get that as well. Like, you know how you're more likely to pick up if you're like moody and mysterious looking and you kind of look like you might murder them. And everyone finds that attractive, but someone with a smile, everyone's like, no.
No, I know what you mean. Definitely. I suppose maybe the other thing is that probably when I'm dancing, is it main character syndrome? I don't know enough about it. I hope it's not too bad a thing. But probably when I dance, I probably do think I'm like the star of the show. And maybe that's really off-putting.
Oh. I have to say, I hate pulling on the dance floor. And I think for the same reasons that you have. Like, if the music is amazing and I'm really enjoying myself, I don't want to be distracted.
Yeah, I just think I'm there to dance. You're there to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's not,
Like, how am I supposed to lip sync to this song with your tongue down my throat?
Exactly. Get me on the break, in the intermission when I'm at the bar. That's a really good time to get me.
Take a number, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. I think it's a really weird, and it is a frustration that I've had, especially as someone who doesn't drink. And I just don't really like late nights that much. Like, I do enjoy going out to a club for a bit of a boogie, but by 1 a.m. latest,
really?
I am done. Yeah, I've never been able to pull at a club ever. Once, I think I did kiss someone at a bar, and then I asked him to stop because I was embarrassed because my friends are there and I just don't know how I look kissing. I was a lot younger then as well. But I said, "Oh, you can take my number," and he was like, "No, I'm all right." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, not ideal. But
so just in defense of this guy, I find that a much preferable approach than someone saying, "Yeah, sure, I'll take your number," and then never ringing you. So just to give him his
that's
props.
True. I agree. I totally agree. I think we have a real problem of just not being direct sometimes. I say we. I'm very direct. I don't.
I'm perfect.
I'm the exception to that rule.
Everyone else.
Yeah. I behave exactly how everyone else should behave. And if we could all just do what I do, that'd be fine. But yeah, I've never seen gay clubs. I mean, I've definitely, especially when I was younger, had such an expectation that that's where I would meet someone. But they aren't. I don't think they are. I don't feel they're very conducive to meeting someone.
Oh, really?
Really.
So the thing that I thought we were going to talk about in today's conversation was small town pubs and how, like, you see the same people over and over, and so you develop this sense of community more. Did you not have that experience?
No, not at all. I mean, for multiple reasons. I've never felt very. I don't know. It sounds really bad and quite homophobic because I said I've never felt that included in the gay community.
Why does that doesn't, like, are they being homophobic or are you being homophobic?
Well, no, I think it sounds like I'm homophobic. I think it's a bit like I don't know. I just think it's a bit weird. I think it is a bit weird if you're a gay person who can't have any. And I do have have a handful of gay friends who I do like, love even, and
right.
I think the world of them. Yeah, they're fine. But I don't think I've ever felt that sense of community in any kind of, not really anywhere that I've been. I mean, I've been to like Pride quite a lot, but then it does feel like a party. People are getting quite drunk. And that's just not my vibe. I think actually I went through a real phase when I was younger of trying to find my kind of niche within the gay community, and I went to a gay book club.
What books did you read?
To be fair, I did go late. I kind of messaged about a week before their first meet up, and they said, "We've got this book." And I ordered it, and I had like 2 days to read it, and it was something about some guy with a dodgy leg.
Oh yeah, that book, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but the guy wasn't even gay. It was ridiculous, and they were saying, well, the leg is an allegory for his homosexuality, and I was like, I don't want to read an allegory. I'd like to read some kissing.
I need some butt sex, otherwise I'm out.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's why I've included some in my book. There is quite a lot of butt sex.
So you gave this reading group a real good chance then.
No, you're right. That was quite bad. But do you think sometimes sometimes it didn't really work out? But then there was other things. I went to a gay hiking group, which was embarrassing. So I went directly up to this group of men who seemed quite effeminate, and it was in the middle of the woods. And I said, "Hey, you guys, the gay hikers?" And they were like, "No." And that was it. That was yeah. I'm trying to. I mean, I went to a gay.
Wait. No. Did you then find the group that you were supposed to be with, or did you run home in shame?
No. I just sat in my car for a bit and checked I was in the right place and things. And it was just definitely the wrong. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they just looked at me. I internalized it, and they looked at me and thought, "We don't want to go right with you." Maybe I said the wrong thing. Who knows? It just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, I mean, I quite enjoyed the gay movie club thing that I went to. That was quite good. But I still, like I said, I don't think I ever felt like a real kind of inclusion in kind of anywhere that kind of was predominantly I suppose that all these places are predominantly gay men as well. Like I don't, know. I wouldn't go to a lesbian bar. It wouldn't be appropriate. I'd probably quite enjoy it. Yeah, and it's just like other things like that don't match. Bars don't really match with what I like doing. So that's why I was always looking for kind of other avenues to kind of get into. Having a group, a niche of people that kind of felt like my group. And I really sought it out. Like and I realised that I'm not a big kind of club goer. But yeah, I think I'm trying to. Just over the years, just so many, and especially also being on the kind of comedy circuit and stuff. There's, I met a few other gay performers or gone to kind of queer nights and stuff like that. And I have made friends that way, but I wouldn't say it was like a group. But I think maybe that's just who I am, because I don't think I don't have a group of friends. I have many, not many, but like little, So maybe that's just a more natural fit for me. But it's just hard because when you talk about kind of like a kind of small town gay community, I did notice lots of people seem to know each other, and I did feel very separate to that. Although actually I would say I did see the guy who sat on my lap. I saw him in the street quite a few times, and I always said hello. So maybe that's just I wasn't having enough people on my lap. Maybe that's what the issue was.
I mean, is it an inviting lap?
I believe so. Millions would disagree. I think it's just...
Millions? Come on.
If you see my block list on Grindr, millions.
Your block list, or the list of people who've blocked you?
The people, because I tend to talk to people, and then if they don't talk to me back, I just block them.
That's very clever.
It is, but I mean, it's a very long list. It's getting a bit sad, but it works out. I think if you're not interested in someone on Grindr, then that's what we're all there for. So just do them a favour and block them. If you don't have to say no to them, and I think you forget a blocking a lot quicker than you will forget being ignored or and then kind of continually seeing their face, or if someone gets back to you and is rude, then obviously that will hurt your feelings more than.
What is up with that when people do that? It's so weird.
Well, this is what I was saying about how I believe I'm obviously doing everything right. I just think it's really weird. I would never ignore someone. I suppose some people are getting so many messages, it's hard to keep a track. But I don't know any of those people. But I just think, simple kind of blocking someone. I just think then it's, although I do find there's a lot of people who say they're looking for friends, and I always say hello to them, and I rarely get a reply, which I think is ridiculous. I'm a very good friend.
The thing that pisses me off the most is when people in their bio are like, oh, can't we just all be nice to each other? Like, it costs nothing to be a good human being, and then they're a complete arsehole to you, and you're just like, what? Like, does this rule only apply to you?
So weird. Especially those people will never reply. And I just think I know, like, obviously... I was saying to my friend, a friend of mine on dating at the moment, as well am I, and she's a woman, and I do think it's different. Like, I think women and men, there's lots of misogyny going on, and if a woman just replies to a man and says, no thank you, then he might reply back saying you're a fucking bitch, and then a woman does not owe a man an explanation. But when I think we're all gay, we're in this kind of community together, I just think a simple like no thanks. And when people say, oh, you're not my type, but thanks, I never feel offended. But maybe I'm just maybe that's just not something I'm insecure about. Maybe that would be some other people's biggest fear. So I suppose I can't say they're all bad people who. But I just think a simple no thank you, and then or just blocking someone is like the easiest thing. I know obviously it seems a bit dramatic, but I just think I prefer it when I've just been blocked. I can find that quite funny versus funny or just forgettable versus someone just ignoring you. It just feels very rude. It just feels so much ruder just to not acknowledge it.
But I think like there's this. I always step outside of the culture when I want to criticize it. So sorry, I'm about to do that. There's that British thing of like not wanting to be rude and then doing something that's even ruder, but because it's so ingrained in the culture, like people don't see it as being rude.
Yes, I can see what you mean. It's very weird. And like you said, I think nobody sets out wanting to be rude. And I think there's also a difference of, some people might just see something as rude and some people don't, And I think... outside of Grindr, let's say someone comes to my house and they don't take their shoes off, but they're my really good friend, and I'll just say, "I'll put your shoes off," because I prefer people taking their shoes off at home. And I don't, that's to me. I think
where is this leading?
If I didn't know them, if that was someone I didn't like, I'd think it was the rudest thing in the whole world. But if they were a friend or I liked them, you're prepared to forgive everything. So I definitely think it's kind of. It's hard to say one rule for everyone because everybody likes different things, and also you respond differently depending on how you like someone. So like that guy who sat on my lap, very inappropriate. But if I had fancied him loads, I'd have thought it was the best thing in the entire world.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's like I said, it's really hard to kind of do broad strokes and say this is the rule for everyone. But I definitely think some sort of acknowledgement, I always think I prefer personally. So if anyone listening does come across me on Grindr, I'd prefer to be blocked than left on the road.
Where do you live? I'll look you up on Grindr and then I'll block you right now.
Please do. I'll be very hurt if I ever am in your area and I don't spot you. I should be very upset.
But let's talk more about community, right? Because I think a lot of this hinges on what you think community means.
Very true. Very true. Because I wonder sometimes if I'm asking too much of what I think it should mean. Like I used to do a joke, which I thought was very funny because I thought probably it was very true. If the gay community was for what it should be, or how I feel it should be, I should be able to go onto Grindr and say to the nearest person to me, "Hi, can I come and use your loo?" And I think that's quite reasonable. And that is not how everyone feels about it. So you're right. Like, I think my idea of what community is, probably I am very big part of, well, not big part, that's a bit dramatic, but like I probably am part of the community. I just don't, it just isn't quite as warm and fuzzy as I'd like it to be, maybe.
So what did you want to do in the loo? Just so we're like...
Just to use it. Just to use the loo on my own, door closed. I didn't actually anyone ever message me.
How long would you need? Like what?
I mean, it's just a quick maximum I'd ever spend in someone else's loo would be like 4 minutes, I would say.
Oh.
And that would be in an emergency situation.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable.
It's unreasonable.
But maybe it's not a good indicator of community.
Yeah, it's not a good barometer of that feeling. I see what you're saying. Because I do remember not that long ago, I say not that long, it was probably about 5 years ago, my shower broke. And I remember messaging the nearest 5 people, just like, can I just come and use your shower? I'm desperate. No response. And like some of them I'd been to like their house for like other fun stuff. So that's rude, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's rude. But like, so was that your opening line? Or did you say hello first?
It was like, a real plea for help. I was like, hey, I'm your neighbour and I'm in need. Which I think, and I'd respond to that. I think that's brilliant. But again, I just feel like I see things differently to maybe how the rest of people. That sounds like I think I'm really unique. I just mean that like I think I'm great and other people feel differently.
No, I mean if I'd slept with you and it wasn't like the worst experience in the world, then I would be like, yeah, come over and have a shower. If you were a neighbour, like if you were just some rando who messaged me, I don't know if I would.
I see what you mean. So then your barometer to community and mine are maybe slightly different, but more in tune. There are more similarities than there are differences there, which I like.
Well, I think the thing that you've talked about that's really resonated with me is this thing of not having groups of friends, but having individual friends. Mm. And I think when that's the case, it can be hard to feel part of a bigger thing because you're just part of lots of small things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I remember like in a really weird way, like I remember times when I was growing up and I'd just be sort of desperate to go on like lads' holidays and stuff. And I'd just like things I would sooner die than go to. I just used to think, God, it's just you kind of want what you don't have, don't you? And I go on these lovely holidays with a friend and I think they were amazing. And I think to myself, I just wish that there was like
10 of us.
Four more. Yeah, 4 more of us and we were all matching T-shirts with swear words on them. That would be, that's all it was missing. But then also it'd be awkward to go on one of those holidays and they'd be like, let's go out. And I'd be like, let's stay and have a cup of tea.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like just glossing over all the details of like all the interpersonal beef that people have, all the drama, all of the negotiation that you have to do that you just don't have to do when it's one person.
Yeah. And I'm so bad at going along with things that I don't love.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are so easygoing and I'm like, no, that's not really, I don't want to do that. And I'm very bad at that and I try to be better at it.
Oh, see, I'm like worse than that because I'm super easygoing until I'm not. And then
you've got a cut-off point. It's a hard cut-off point.
But I've like lulled everyone into this false sense of security by being so easygoing. And then all of a sudden I'm like, no, don't look at me anymore. That's it. And storm off.
It's usually over something quite small as well. So it's like you've been going along with it. You're hosting dinner, 16 people, and then everyone's like, and then do you mind just turning the heat up? And you're like, no.
I never want to see you again. Yeah. Yeah.
Reasonable.
So Eclipse.
I suppose it just feels very long ago and just ultimately like always quite disappointing because I always went hoping to find someone and never did. Yeah, it was always quite typical, I think. My experience there was just always kind of the same. It was just I suppose quite a weird time in my life. I felt like it gave me so much kind of confidence and so like just being in Cornwall, being in college and having friends and things suddenly and also, even going to those places and suddenly I had an experience. So when I went to gay clubs in London, I kind of knew, I was intimidated, but it wasn't my first time going, and that felt quite nice. It was like a really nice kind of introduction in a way. Yeah, so it's a really weird kind of time in my life where it gave me so much, but then also left me wanting more, which actually is probably quite good when you're in your kind of late teens because there's so much more to take it from life. So yeah, quite a good spot to be in.
So then, with all of that in mind, if you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself at 16 when you had just been sat on by some weird man, what would you say?
To that experience, I'd say like, it's okay that felt weird and you don't have to do that again. And I'd say to not have so much expectation of what you would like to happen. And, you're not going to be a bad person if you have sex with someone and never speak to them again. Like, that's okay. That happens quite a lot. And that will happen to you a lot and you'll be really okay with it. And, kind of just go with that. Such an annoying piece of advice. But I wouldn't have responded very well to it. But just to kind of reassure you, it's not going to work. It's not going to turn out how you want it to. But you can have more fun with it,
knowing that.
If you know that now. Yeah, definitely. I think that's the kind of conversation we would have had. And I imagine younger me would have had lots of questions. Are we going to be rich? No.
There's still time.
There's still time.
Do you have any memories of Eclipse or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories from queer clubbing. Go to lostspacesPodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me all about what you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. You can also find out more about Martin by following him on Twitter at Martin J. Dixon. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, Well Groomed Boys, which is playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.